the question is, why does a guy from Michigan drive all the way to New York to catch salmon? Well, there's a story here. About a decade ago, Lake Huron had a forage base crash, and that salmon fishery kind of went into a tailspin. And now, more recently, the same thing is happening in Lake Michigan. We're losing some of our alewi forage base, and so our Department of Natural Resources is in a tough spot. They have not been able to stock as many salmon as they have done historically. So our Lake Michigan and our Lake Huron fisheries are actually struggling right now. Meanwhile, Lake Ontario has had none of those issues. They have a tremendous forage base here, and the primary reason for it is that it's at the end of the Great Lakes chain. All of the water from the Great Lakes eventually drains into Lake Ontario, and primarily Lake Erie, which is nutrient rich, is pouring a lot of nutrient rich water into this fishery. So the forage base here has been doing excellent. They got alewives, they got emerald shiners, they got gizzard shad, they got lots of things for salmon to eat, and they've been stocking aggressively. And as a result, the fishing is really quite excellent. It's not that far a drive either. From a guy that lives in Michigan, it's only about a 6-hour drive from northern Michigan to be able to drive here to catch fish. If you're in Metro Detroit, you can drive to where we're at here in Lewiston, New York in about 3 to 4 hours. So it's not that far to travel to get on world-class salmon fishing.
And this diver rod here, I actually took that same pink dotted Dodger or spin doctor that we were using, put the same meat rig on, put it out to the side, and caught one right away with it. Just a little guy. With that same setup that's been on Dad's downrigger that's been working all day, I duplicated it, put it on a diver, and we got a fish with it. I'm gonna need a pair of pliers on this guy, I think.
I got you covered here, Jake.
This has been the hot rotator today. It's Pink Dot 1 by Spin Doctor. And then it just kind of comes back to the business end here, this meat rig. Basically all it is just this head, and you'll put a chunk of meat in there. Then there's this little hole right here, you'll put a toothpick through there. That's all it is, just a chunk of meat that's rotating nice and slow in the water. The king salmon just can't resist it.
Jake and I really like coming to the Niagara Bar to target salmon, and there's a lot of good reasons for coming here. First of all, they got a great spring fishery. They also have an outstanding summer fishery as well. So there's lots of great time, anywhere from basically about the 1st of May all the way through June, July, and into August. You can have great salmon fishing here.
Doesn't really matter what size they are on riggers, they're always fun. You pop that rigger and get to reel down on a fish, that's so cool. Looks like another little jack here.
Well, we won't bring the net out on him. We'll just try to be gentle on him and get him back in the water. Ooh. Nice eating size fish right there, but see what we got. There we go.
What we got going on there, Dad?
I got a fish. I need a net, I think. Not a big fish. I'm not sure what we got going on here.
I'll go grab the net quick.
Staying down, I can't quite see it here. Or just a jack. We'll see here. Ooh. There we go.
Like some black gums to me. Looks like a little jack king.
Historically, salmon fishermen have used copper line for getting deep. And this steel does exactly the same thing, but it doesn't have any of the, shall we say, user-friendly problems associated with copper. Copper tends to snarl, it backlashes really easily, kinks, and then if it does kink, you really can't fix it. The stainless wire is amazing stuff. It's easy to handle and easy to fish with. A medium-sized salmon, just a medium-sized salmon. Look at that. He just ate that plug. He got all the hooks in him. That maglip, he just chowed on it. You know, anytime you travel as much to fish as we do, you need what we call boots on the ground. Essentially what we do is we get ourselves a network of fishermen that we communicate with to find out what's going on and when it's going on. And when it comes to the Niagara Falls region or the Niagara Bar, there's a number of people that we use. We use Frank Campbell quite a bit, and we also use Matt Yomblowski. And Matt is one of those guys that loves to troll the bar. He's out there every available day he possibly can, and has been very gracious with sharing techniques and specific spots for us to try, and it's really helped us get on fish very quickly.
Between Ontario and New York, they put 1.7 million salmon into Lake Ontario. Combined with that, they put in a lot of steelhead, brown trout, lake trout. Our fishery is as good as it's ever been. We've got a phenomenal bait population. We have Lake Erie just upriver of us from the Niagara River. Lake Erie brings nice, green, warm water in, full of phosphates, full of algae and phytoplankton, zooplankton, that all the filter feeders can eat. So our bait fish population has a great supply of food coming out of the lower Niagara from Erie. which makes our salmon and trout fishery just phenomenal.
Special considerations provided by Eagle Claw, proudly made in America since 1925. Additional considerations provided by Fishhawk Electronics. Trolling without a fishhawk is called boating.
You know, early in the day when you're salmon fishing, your traditional gear is going to catch these fish. Your spoons and your plugs, your rotators and flies are going to catch them. But during the middle of the day when the bite slows down, meat rigs are the king out here. They're definitely going to catch fish when nothing else is working. So a lot of captains carry them, put them down during the middle of the day when things are otherwise slow, just to be able to get some bites when otherwise it might be kind of tough to get them.
Meat, meat, meat. That is the story of today. I'm telling you what, if you don't bring a couple meat rigs with you, at least put them out once that sun comes up and it gets to that lull in the day, you're really missing out. You're going to definitely get a couple more bites every day just by putting some meat rigs in the water. Woo-hoo-hoo. Yeah, let's hear that drag scream. Oh man, I love king fishing. There's nothing better.
I
Look,
don't
he's
know,
jumping
man.
out
That's
there.
a jumper.
He's jumping out there.
You might have a different flavor on there, man.
That's one of the things that I love about coming to Lake Ontario. Every year we've came, you know, for the last 3 or 4 years. You just really never know what you're going to catch no matter what time of year you're here. You can catch Atlantics, you can catch king salmon, coho salmon. I think this one's definitely, gotta get tight on him. He just came off, I think. He's still there. This is an Atlantic. No doubt about it. I just saw its tail. It's not chrome enough to be a steelhead and not the right color to be a king. I could be wrong on national television.
You're getting a good fight out of him.
But I would say this is a
kings. I'm not saying they don't jump, but generally kings don't do a lot of jumping, but Atlantics do. So you folks at home didn't get the pleasure of seeing that. That fish came 6 feet out of the water. I mean, he just rocketed out of the water like what a steelhead would do.
That is a king, Dad.
It is a king. It's just
a spunky king.
It's just an ambitious king.
Wow.
Holy smokes! There
Big
you go,
fish
kid.
too.
That fish must have been feeling some pain. That's the kind we're looking
Wow.
for. What a stud!
You know what? I'm okay with being wrong on a king like that. We gotta pull it out. Woo, woo, woo. Oh my goodness, Dad. Take a look at that king right there. Wow. You know, I thought this fish was an Atlantic just by how much it was jumping. I mean, there was a time this fish came 6 feet out of the air. I mean, just right rocketing up, did not act like a king salmon. But with a king that big, I'll be wrong any day of the week as long as we're putting kings like this in the boat. The diver that we're using today is called a slide diver. I don't know if you've ever heard of a slide diver before, but it's a pretty cool system. What it does is it allows you to kind of vary the lead that you have back behind your lure. And in the Great Lakes, the lakes are getting clearer and clearer every year. So what you'll see is guys using standard divers and putting 20, 30-foot leaders on and hand over handing kings at the back of the boat. Well, in a small boat, it's really hard to do that. Long rods, it just makes it very difficult. So with a slide diver, it'll actually slide up and down the line, and I can determine how long I want that leader. Then when I click it over, I'll click it over into position there and it goes out to the side. When I catch a fish and it releases, it'll actually slide down the line and it slides all the way down to a barrel swivel that I have right here. So it's pretty cool, you know, and then basically all you're gonna do is just fight that fish with the diver tripped. You're not feeling the resistance of the diver, and then when that fish comes to the back of the boat, you can scoop it all at once. So it's just a nice short leader, makes everything compact. The slide diver is a great way to get long leaders, but still be able to scoop that fish in a small boat like we are in today.
Today seems to have been an interesting day for us. We've struggled to get to the better quality fish today. These young salmon are so active. They are just really hard to keep off our gear. Okay, let's see if I can get him to cooperate. Now he decides to get all excited. You know, don't get over top that diver line. You don't get over top that diver line. Whoa, whoa. I see what you mean about these meat rigs. They do give you a little challenge in getting that fish under control, don't they?
There we go, Dad.
There we go.
Nice fish.
That's a decent fish. Yeah, good eating size salmon. He fooled me. I thought it might have been a lake trout, so it wasn't fighting all that hard. Now I understand why he wasn't fighting all that hard. He wasn't all that big. There we go. Another salmon. Good one for the box. You know, a lot of places where people have historically traveled to catch salmon in the Great Lakes, places like Lake Michigan, Lake Huron, are really struggling currently to produce good fishing. That is not the case when it comes to Lake Ontario. Lake Ontario's fishing is as good today as it ever has been, and in fact, it looks like the future is very bright indeed here for those people who love to target silverfish.
Look at that king salmon.
Special considerations provided by Bait Rigs Tackle, America's innovator of fine fishing products. Additional considerations provided by the Ultimate Sports Show Tour, Michigan's premier sports shows.
You know, with all these rods in the water, we're going to need lots of rod holders, and so we're using different types of rod holders for different types of applications. So if we start all the way forward here where I'm at, this is what's called a rod holder tree, and this is what's got our core on it and our wire line rigs. We're going to fish these on inline planer boards. On the outside, we've got an offshore OR12. On the inside, we've got an offshore SST Pro Mag that's hauling that bigger copper wire, or in this case, I should say stainless steel wire. So this type of rod holder to rod holder tree is ideal for this. As we drop down here, we've got a cradle rod holder, and a cradle rod holder is just absolutely perfect for diving planers. So we got our slide diver on this, makes it easier to put in. It makes it really easy to get out when you've got a fish. So we like saddle holders for that style of fishing. Then when we go all the way to the back to the downrigger, most people use the holders that come on the rigger. Jake and I prefer to use an extra tube holder and bring it in so that the rod is in line with the back of the boat. And this tube holder makes it super easy. When I've got a fish on there, all I have to do is just pick it up and start reeling as fast as I can, because a lot of times there's slack line in a downrigger when a fish bites and you got to reel fast. So this tube holder makes that just ideally perfect for it. So tube holders for riggers, saddle holders for divers, and trees when you're fishing inline boards and things like lead core, copper line, and steel line.
There we go.
Good job. Well, I'm not even going to put this diver in the water. I'm just going to wait for a minute then.
Yeah, Dad, if you would do me a favor and pick up that steel line. So I was in the middle of setting that steel line when he bit. Woo! Listen to that drag scream, Daddy. This is day 2 of our Lake Ontario fishing adventure. And yesterday, it didn't get too rough not to fish, but it got too rough to film, you know? So we went in and got regrouped, you know, got a program together, came back out this morning, the wind died down, and just like any kind of king fishing, the sun's coming up and the drag is screaming. I love it. Woo-hoo-hoo, I can't turn this one, boss.
Well, you just take your time with him, and there's no hurry. There's no hurry.
You know, yesterday, the meat rig program that we were using was so good that we put a couple more of them out today. And I put this downrigger down. I don't even have all my lines in the water yet, and this meat rig fired right away. So I think this one's about 60 down, which is a little bit higher than we were fishing yesterday. But one thing about king fishing is early in the morning, they will feed out of the water temperature. Once that sun starts to come up, then being on that water temperature is super important. But just getting your gear in the water early in the morning, getting it in front of fish, you're gonna get hooked up.
Jake, I got a fish on my outside line. Now what are we gonna do? We got a double. Mine's a pounder too.
That one's screaming, yeah.
That's a screamer too. Double
I don't know if we
header
got
action. Woo, baby. I'll tell you what I'm gonna do. I'll just work this one slow, and when you get close, holler. I'll run and grab the net. And we'll see about tackling yours.
Oh, I got mine freaking out now. Every inch of line that I just got just went away.
Well, you're right about one thing, Jake. These fish are definitely out of temperature this morning. This rod was only fishing 40 down. So we know for a fact, because of our fish hawk, that that water is upper 50s, low 60s. So that's definitely not salmon water, but they're up there feeding because that's where the alewives are at. Well, one of the things you might want to think about when you're salmon fishing is just kind of keeping a cool head. I mean, it's crazy right now. We got 2 fish on. They're going back and forth. They run wherever they want to run. I mean, you can't stop a salmon. When he decides to go, he's going. And so basically, you just got to take your time, keep a cool head. And when it gets time to net these 2 fish at the back of the boat, I don't know how we're going to quite deal with that just yet, but we'll figure that out when we get there.
Oh, Daddy.
It's a big fish.
Look at that fish.
You're going to have to back up, Jake.
I'll back up when I get close. My legs are shaking. My heart's pounding. That is a big Lake Ontario king right there. Oh, baby, I think we got him. Oh my goodness, Dad. Oh my goodness. Scoop ball.
That is a monster, buddy. That is a monster.
Giant.
Jeez. That is an absolute giant.
That might be the biggest king I've ever caught.
You get him picked up. I'm going to get on my fish, man. My fish still out there. Well, big letdown here for me. My fish is nowhere near the size Jake's is. He was just hooked kind of funny, so he pulled in a little harder than usual. But just goes to show you. Look at he's just hooked horrible. Got him right in the side.
Let's get this big king up here. Catch my breath long enough to hold him up for the camera. Wow, is that a giant, Dad? You know, it's only June. This king right here, you know, if he wouldn't have bit, would have got even bigger before the fall. The forage base on Lake Ontario is unbelievable right now. There are so many alewives in this system, smelt in this system, just kind of a king paradise. And when you put that much bait in a system, you get kings like this.
It's a beauty. It's one of the nicest kings we've caught in recent years, Jake.
That's a giant.
Congratulations, my son. That is a good fish.
Yeah.
Hey, just caught that fish on 10 color. Now it's time to reset up my planer board. And what I want to point out is that Offshore made a really new addition to their product line. It's something really cool. The flag itself has got a tab on it, and there's 4 additional holes for the tattle flag system. This is a spring operated system, and the flag goes down when you catch a fish and then pops back up. Well, before, what would happen when you're fishing something heavy like leg core, it would pull so hard it would just pull the flag down, the flag would just stay down. Well, now with this extra spring tension by having these additional holes, I can actually fish a 10 color and that flag stays up. Well, why is that important? Well, I just caught a little small jack salmon. I might not have realized I even was dragging that fish on the planer board, but the tattle flag goes down and I know I've got a small salmon, reel that in, check it, set that line back out again. So the new tattle flag systems with tabs on them are just dynamite for knowing when you got small fish on, or maybe you're dragging a weed or some other type of debris. Works great.
Special considerations provided by Trailmaster Trailers, quality custom boat trailers. Additional considerations provided by Procure, ruthlessly effective bait suds.
You know, as a trout and salmon fisherman, we use a lot of gear, but one of the most important pieces of equipment that we use is called a fish hawk. What a fish hawk does is it gives us our speed down at the depth. More importantly, it also gives us temperature down at the depth. What we've seen today is that temperature has really fluctuated. We want to stay anywhere, you know, between that 50 and 55 degree range. That seems to be where these fish are feeding the most. But one thing about salmon is they will feed out of temperature early in the morning and then of course in the afternoon. But midday like we have right now, if you're going to be a successful salmon fisherman, you got to stay in that temperature zone of that 50-55 degree range. The fish hawk allows us to do that. It also gives us our speed down at the ball. And at some points today, we've been going 3 miles an hour at the surface just to stay about that 2.2, 2.3 at the ball. Now, why is that important? With a lot of different stuff in the water, like spoons and rotators, they're very speed-sensitive presentations. You know, being able to see what our speed is down at the depth is super important because it allows us to know what our equipment's doing down there. If we're going too slow, our spoons and our rotators won't have any action. If we're going too fast, those salmon might not want to bite that. So we're trying to keep that same speed, and that fish hawk allows us to do just that. And we've actually caught fish on just about all the presentations that you can think of. We've caught them on spoons, rotators, flies, meat rigs, you name it. But even better, we've caught them on all of our presentations. Divers, riggers, leg core, copper. That's when you know everything's working. We have 8 rods out right now, and every fish and every rod has been caught on a different presentation. So, hey, Dad.
Yeah?
This fish is ready. This fish is ready.
Let's take a look here.
Let's see here.
Lift, lift.
Let's go, Paul. Yeah!
That's a good fish, Jake. That is a lamprey, and it's the scourge of the Great Lakes. They're an invasive species, and what they do is they latch onto the fish, trout and salmon. They literally suck the lifeblood out of them. This one's not going back in the water, no way, no how. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service does a lot of work to try to control these, but it's impossible to keep them under 100% control. This one is not going back in the water. He sucked his last blood from a Great Lakes trout and salmon.
It's been pretty much a meat rig game lately. You know, we've caught fish on all the different presentations like I was saying, but the meat rigs have by far outproduced everything. And the one thing we've done is we started with a lot of different things, but the meat rigs were catching more fish, so by the end, most of our presentations right now are meat rigs. And because of that, we've been able to put a program together, put a lot of these big kings like this in the boat. This will never get old. A lot of fun. These fish just never quit.
Well, since I got a lot of time on my hands, it's going to take me a while to reel this fish in. Let's talk a little bit about where we're staying. You know, we've been referencing Niagara Falls, but we're not actually staying in Niagara Falls. We're staying in a beautiful little town called Lewiston. And we really like it. It's quaint, it's quiet, it's got beautiful restaurants, nice motels, and it's about a baseball throw to the boat launch from where we're staying. So it's really convenient for fishermen. Also has a nice fish cleaning station back near the boat launch. So you got a good place to clean your catch once you get back. It doesn't get much better than that. Safe, beautiful, clean community that caters to fishermen. Now you gotta love that. A couple more feet here and then I've got the leader on the reel. So all the backing's on, all the copper line is on, and now we're into the leader. That's a good thing. That's the final milestone. Well, not the final one, but the next to last milestone. Now we got to get this fish close enough that we can reach him with a landing. Perfect. Uh-oh. There we go. Now we got him where we wanted. Now we got him where we wanted. I'll bring him right up here in the corner here. If we can.
I'm gonna back up a little bit. Nice fish, Dad. Oh boy, that never gets old. Look at that king. Whoa.
Oh my goodness. I hate to say I got my butt whipped by a fish, but I just got my butt whipped by a fish. These kings fight like nothing other, and I think that's the primary reason people are so enamored with them. King salmon fight like nothing else in the Great Lakes. Well, hey, my name is Mark Romanack, and you've been watching Fishing 401. If you love salmon fishing, you really need to check out the Niagara region of Lake Ontario. Is it good fishing, Jake?
Oh my God, unbelievable.
We'll see you same time, same place next week. Woo, baby!
Closed captioning is provided by Fishhawk Electronics. Fishing 411 is brought to you by Offshore Tackle, Yakima Bait, Starcraft Marine, Jay's Sporting Goods, Cisco Fishing Systems, Smooth Moves, Precision Trolling Data, Niagara Falls, USA, Motor Guide Electric Motors, and Lowrance Electronics.
This is the best way to bring in a king salmon. You leave it hooked up to the ball, you crank it up, you scoop the fish.
It does avoid a lot of the difficulties, doesn't it?